Good day, folks. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Freewell Gear's variable ND filters for the DJI Mavic Air 2. A couple weeks ago, we took a look at Freewell Gear's standard ND filters, and we're going to talk about what the difference is between variable ND filters and standard ND filters and which ones are maybe right for you. So let's just jump right in and take a closer look. Now, before we get going on this video, I just want to mention, because I know I'm probably going to get a couple comments down below, and that is why I'm making so many videos on ND filters. I know they can be a little bit boring if you're not into ND filters or are not in the market for them. So in that situation, feel free to skip this video if it's not of interest to you. However, if you are in the market for ND filters, there is a lot on the market, and I'd like to cover all the different brands and styles, and that way it helps you make a more informed decision. Now, another question I do get asked quite a bit is whether they should go with Freewell gear or Polar Pro when it comes to ND filters. Personally, myself, I don't really have a particular brand that I like when it comes to ND filters. Definitely, I would stick with something like Polar Pro or Freewell gear. They do have a really good track record. Both of them stand behind their products and they make a good quality filter. For me, it just all boils down to price, what I can get the best deal on. Freewell gear ND filters tend to be a little bit cheaper, and they tend to offer nice kits like this, like the all-day pack. So as I stated at the beginning of this video, we took a look at their standard ND filters for the Mavic Air 2, and now we're going to be taking a look at variable ND filters, and we're going to talk about what the difference is between them. With normal ND filters, they come in values of ND4, ND8, ND16, and so on. Now, these ones also have built-in polarizers, but the values of the ND filters are constant. Now, on a variable ND filter, you can see we have some numbers labeled on the dial there. We have a 2, a 3, 4, and 5. Now, the thing to keep in mind that those aren't ND values, those are f-stops. And basically the way it converts is when you have the dial set at 2, that's an ND4. If you go to 3, that's an ND8. If you go to 4, that's an ND16. And if you go up to 5, that's an ND32. So a variable ND filter is a way to get all your ND values on one filter. And it's kind of convenient because you don't have to carry around a whole bunch of filters with you. The other benefit is you can change these on the fly without having to power off your drone. If you're careful, you can just land your drone, spin the dial to what you need, and then put it back up in the air. Unlike traditional ND filters, you'd have to power off the drone, take the old ND filter off and put the new one on, then put it back up in the air. So it can save you a lot of time as lighting conditions change throughout the day. The other nice benefit is you can also dial an ND value that's kind of in between. For example, if it's a bright day and you're working with standard ND filters, you might put an ND16 on and find out that's not quite enough. If you put an ND32 on, you might find that's a little too much. So with a variable ND filter, you can kind of put it in between the 4 and 5 and kind of find that nice middle ground. So there's a lot of convenience factors using these variable ND filters. Now, the downside to using variable ND filters is that the quality might not be as good. In order for a variable ND filter to work, there's two pieces of glass that change as you spin it. So the quality might be off a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, you're still going to get a nice quality image. And for the most part, it's probably something you would never notice. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole why and how to use ND filters. I have made several videos about that in the past. So if you are new and you want to learn a little bit more about ND filters, you can go back through my channel and watch those videos. But in a nutshell, it allows you to set the appropriate shutter speed and still maintain proper exposure. Setting the appropriate shutter speed to frame rate allows you to get that motion blur in your shots to make it look a little bit better, a little bit more pleasing to the eye. Just for a quick example here, here's a shot from the Mavic Air 2. Everything is set to auto, so it's going to have a very high shutter speed because it's fairly bright out that day. As we fly along this hayfield, you can see that the bottom of the image where the hay is moving along very quickly looks a little bit stuttery, and that's because of the high shutter speed. A lot of what's being filmed is very crisp and in focus. For the most part, you don't want that. If we take a screen grab from the video, you can see the bottom half of the image where there's a lot of motion is quite in focus. Ideally, we want the bottom half of the image there where there's the motion to be a little bit blurry. So now in this next clip, we've set the appropriate shutter speed, and I've put an ND filter on there to allow for proper exposure. And as you can see, the bottom half of the image where there's a lot of motion, we have a bit of motion blur. The top part of the video where there's little motion is crisp and in focus, and that's ideally what you want. And as you can see here, if we take a screen grab, you can see just how much motion blur has been added. So hopefully, if you're new to ND filters, maybe new to drones, my explanation of variable ND filters made sense to you. Now, if you're deciding what style of ND filters to get, whether you should get some standard ND filters or variable ND filters, I would just recommend if you're doing any kind of cinematography where you're trying to get really nice content, you're spending a lot of time and effort to capture really nice cinematic content, I would pick up a standard set of ND filters. If you're going to be doing a lot of quick run and gun filming, maybe changing the ND filters quite a bit throughout the day, definitely a variable ND filter might be your better option. Freewell Gear makes these variable ND filters for all the different drones. You can see here I have a set for the Mavic 2 Pro. They also make them for other handheld cameras. As you can see here, I have a set for the Osmo Action and for the Osmo Pocket. So if you're trying to get that nice motion blur in some of your handheld shots, you're able to do so as well. Well folks, that's basically it for my video. Hopefully you enjoyed it and got some value out of it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos, and we'll see you in the next one.